Pro Group Management, workers' comp that works for you.
Welcome to Nevada Newsmakers. On the broadcast today, we're talking energy with Nick Goodman, CEO of Cyrq Energy. He's here for the whole show on an all-new Nevada Newsmakers.
Safety. We all think about it. You think about it when he buckles in, when you check your mirrors and put away your phone. RTC thinks about safety too. In fact, we create it. Center turn lanes mean fewer blind spots. Bike lanes keep cyclists and you safe. Roundabouts reduce injury collisions, and all these crosswalks are designed to keep families like yours safe. Safety is your priority, and it's ours too. Every day, in everything we do.
Retail's impact on Nevada's economy? Enormous. 8,600 businesses, large and small, employing 145,000 workers. And last fiscal year, retail paid tax on nearly $60 billion in sales. We're the Retail Association of Nevada. We support retail, we help it grow, and we mean business.
RANNV.org.
Pro Group Management is the place where companies can find workers' comp solutions that are designed to meet their specific business requirements. As regulations evolve, Pro Group takes a proactive approach to clear the path to make sure your business stays ahead of the curve. Knowing your workers' comp program is optimized, you can focus on other important matters related to your growing business. Pro Group Management, workers' comp that works for you.
This is Nevada Newsmakers with host Sam Shad, a no-holds-barred political forum. Now, from the Nevada Newsmakers broadcast headquarters, here is Sam Shad.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we're pleased to welcome to the program for the first time Nick Goodman. He is CEO of Cyrq Energy, Inc., and he is our first person on the program in close to 20 years who is coming to us live from his car. Pleasure to have you on the program, sir. Briefly explain for our viewers why you're actually in your car at this moment.
Oh, good morning, Sam, and thanks for having me. Yeah, unfortunately, we have some forest fires going here in Utah right now, and the road I was on was blocked. So I've pulled off the interstate and in a parking lot and coming to you live from my car.
Well, we appreciate that, and just to assure the viewers and listeners that we will not be doing our version of carpool karaoke. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about. So let me just briefly mention Cyrq Energy is headquartered in Salt Lake City. It's a leader in renewable energy technology with geothermal, solar, and storage facilities generating energy and under development in California, New Mexico, Utah, Oregon, Nevada, as well as Africa. So let's start there. What are you doing in Africa?
Well, we're in the very early stages of development, looking at some project opportunities in both Kenya and Ethiopia. There's tremendous geothermal resources in the African Rift Valley, and that's what we're working on right now.
Okay, well that sounds like a topic for a future program here. Let's talk about geothermal. It doesn't seem to be as sexy and get as much publicity as solar and to a lesser extent wind. Why do you think that is? Because unlike the other two, geothermal is always there. So 24/7, you can rely on geothermal energy.
That's right. Unfortunately, geothermal resources are a little bit more site-specific than solar and wind, and so I think that contributes in part to why you're reading a lot more about solar and wind. Solar and wind, to their credit, have also made a lot of progress over the last 3 or 4 years in technology enhancements and reducing their price. So there's been a large rush. But to your point, electricity from a solar panel is only available when the sun is shining, and from a wind turbine when the wind is blowing. Geothermal is what we call base load. So the energy is there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And it's a very different product from solar and wind in that regard.
We're going to get to Northern Nevada in a moment, but I wanted to ask you, are there opportunities for geothermal development in the Las Vegas area, or is that, because we don't hear about that very much?
You don't. There are not very many known resources in the greater Las Vegas area. We operate a plant in southern Utah, which is about 90 minutes north of Las Vegas, and there is a resource there, but I'm not familiar with resources in and around Las Vegas proper.
All right, so let's talk about Reno. Probably the most well-known geothermal resource in the city of Reno would be the Peppermill Hotel Casino, which has been developing their geothermal resource for years, and most of the property functions off of that. But you're looking to expand the footprint of geothermal in that area of South Reno where geothermal is active. Tell us about what you're anticipating there, because I know you've got some work that's ongoing.
Sure, happy to. And it's great that you bring up the Peppermill. Our Chief Technology Officer, Susan Petty, helped drill that first geothermal well at the Peppermill. I think it was about 35 years ago. So we've got quite a bit of history there. In Reno, we own a district heating utility. So it's not a geothermal power plant. Rather, we take the heat out of the ground and pipe it around to residences that they use for space heating their driveways, swimming pools, and heating their homes. And that's what we're looking to expand. We believe that the city of Reno, technical challenge. We believe the city of Reno has a tremendous opportunity for expanding geothermal district heating as the city grows and as the state moves towards more renewable technologies and renewable supply of energy. So that's that business is called Avalon Geothermal, and again, it's a regulated utility currently that's looking to expand and take on new customers. Most recently, we've had discussions with other casinos. Of course, the Peppermill you mentioned is already doing it, generating heat from geothermal. We've had discussions with other casinos and also with the convention center, and the response has been tremendous. Folks seem to be very interested in the concept.
All right, so from a cost perspective, how much could a company save over time by going toward geothermal rather than just going with regular electricity?
Sure. So again, in Reno, what we're selling is heat, not electricity. And the way our tariff works, or our pricing, is that we track natural gas pricing, and we sell at about a 15% discount to what the natural gas pricing is. So geothermal district heating currently under our tariff will always be cheaper than natural gas. It's a regulated company, and the commission regulates those prices, and that's the way it's set. For electricity from our power plants, it's a little bit different. NV Energy has a blend of sources that make up their electricity portfolio. They still have some coal and in their portfolio. Of course, they have traditional hydro, a lot of solar and some wind, and a fair amount of geothermal. So one of the lessons I learned early in life when I was in the utility side of the business is a diversified portfolio is really the best way to go forward. And NV Energy does a really good job of making sure they have a balance of technologies in their portfolio.
And just to that point of NV Energy, you're working on a project potentially for Valmy, which is the last remaining coal plant that NV Energy has in the state of Nevada. Can you tell us where that is at this point?
Sure, absolutely. So as coal plants are shutting down, we're very interested in assessing the geothermal resource around those coal plants. And we're currently doing some studies on Valmy to see if we can take advantage of the existing development there. There's transmission, there's a switch yard, there's several very large turbines, which may or may not be able to be repurposed. But we think with all of the infrastructure and investment in that location, if there was a potential to develop geothermal or geothermal with thermal storage, which I can talk a little bit more about as well, that might be a good replacement for these coal plants.
All right, so let's talk about thermal storage. Storage in general is obviously one of the things that's been a major discussion point for everything from electric cars to homes, you name it. Explain thermal storage.
Sure. So most of the industry right now is focused on batteries and battery storage. And when you supplement wind and solar with batteries, you get a product and flexibility that looks a lot more like geothermal and baseload. That's not an area where we are choosing to compete. We believe that thermal storage is a lot more similar to or a better fit with geothermal projects. And so in essence, what we are working on is taking excess heat from the geothermal field at a time when the grid doesn't need the electricity and storing that heat in a medium. Currently, we're partnered with Siemens Gamesa, and their technology is to store the heat in these large containers of rocks, essentially. Rocks are a very good conduit for storing heat. And then when the grid needs the electricity, we can pull the heat out of the rock and convert it to steam and drive a turbine. So in partnership with Siemens, we're studying a number of locations right now to supplement geothermal with thermal storage that would allow for a lot more flexibility. So for example, at a project like Valmy, if we were to find a geothermal resource there, we could have a 25 or a 50 megawatt geothermal plant, but with the thermal storage, we could actually deliver up to 100 megawatts of electricity at certain times of the day when the grid was in need of additional electricity.
All right, so at this point in time, you have not found the geothermal source that you would need at Valmy? You're in the exploratory stage?
That's correct. We're in the very early stages of assessing the resource there and a number of other coal plants around the West. But NV Energy has identified Valmy, as you correctly pointed out, as a plant that is targeted to close. And there are a lot of ingredients at the Valmy plant that would make a geothermal and thermal storage project a success.
Is the technology for thermal storage via rocks the same as the thermal storage via salt, which we've seen in central Nevada?
Yeah, it is a similar concept with molten salts, which again is a storage technology that, like rocks, has been around for a long time. With molten salts, you're actually heating that salt up to a much higher temperature. And so the technology is a little different in that regard and a little bit more expensive and has some different challenges. Heating up a solid like rock or concrete is another medium that you commonly see as a heat sink. Is a little bit more, less technology risk, a little bit more old school and sort of traditional, if you will.
All right, let's take a break. We'll come back much more with Nick Goodman, the CEO of Cyrq Energy, after this timeout.
Because of UMC, I'm putting my free time to good use.
Because of UMC, she keeps me on my toes.
Because of UMC and this guy, I'm here.
UMC, the highest level of care in Nevada.
Can't do it. Stupid, like my mom.
We can't do anything at Mommy's because you won't pay child support.
Dad said you cheated, and he's not even sure he's my dad.
Mommy said you left both of us, so she isn't gonna let me see you. I look just like my father.
I'm divorce attorney Marilyn York, and I may represent men, but hate has no gender, only casualties. Please, stop sacrificing your children in your war against your ex.
The signs and symptoms of cataracts can start out small with subtle changes in your vision. So don't wait. Be proactive and take your vision into your own hands. If you're experiencing the onset of cataracts or just have questions, contact your eye care professional or call Eye Care Associates of Nevada today. Dr. Hiss has years of experience specializing in the surgical correction of eye disorders and has completed over 84,000 vision correcting procedures. At Eye Care Associates of Nevada, we'll change the way you look at the world.
Hey, Dad? Are you learning? This place is great. Huh? You gotta try this.
Wow, this stuff is great. People are gonna love it.
Yes. Yes, they will.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we continue our conversation with Nick Goodman, the CEO of Cyrq Energy. And for those of you that are watching online or on television, we want to point out that there is a fire in Utah that has forced Nick to be in his car for this broadcast. But thanks to technology, it's going just fine. So we appreciate that. One of the things that spurred me to want to do this particular interview was a large Department of Energy grant that came out recently. Can you tell us how this is going to affect your company and benefit them?
Sure. We are just tickled pink to be the recipient of a DOE grant that will support some development at one of our plants just outside of Reno in Fernley, Nevada. Ormat, one of our competitors in the industry, received a grant. We received a grant, and a number of other entities did as well, which is a great demonstration of the federal government supporting the development of geothermal. So for our grant at the Fernley plant, we have been looking to expand across the highway and into some existing wells that a previous developer drilled that are not currently suitable for geothermal development. But we believe with this grant, we can apply some new technology to assess these wells and make them available for the existing power plant, which would increase our output. So we're very pleased. We'll be working over the next 2 years on this project, and very pleased to have the funding from the DOE.
What would you use the power for, the energy for, if this is able to be developed in the Fernley area? Because we've got 2 large industrial parks, one that's already underway, one is about to get launched, and it looks like Fernley is going to be another major area of development for the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center.
It sure does, and our plant sits just east of Fernley, smack dab in the middle of a lot of that development. So we're very excited. As you're probably aware, a number of the tenants and folks coming into these technology parks are interested in renewable energy and have expressed interest in geothermal. This particular power plant currently sells most of its energy to Sacramento, to the Sacramento Municipal Utility District under a long-term power purchase agreement. When we generate excess electricity, we're able to sell that. Some of it goes east to the city of Heber, which is just a stone's throw from where I sit today here in Salt Lake City, and some of it goes into the market. So the more electricity we can produce there in Fernley, the more that will be available if, for example, a new technology developer or one of these parks would like renewable energy from a geothermal plant, we will have some to be available. In addition, just as we talked about earlier in Reno, we are beefing up our capabilities to provide slightly cooler geothermal brine for district heating and also potentially cooling in these technology parks as well. So we've recently acquired some leases and are conducting studies to be able to provide district heating both to the Tahoe Regional Industrial Complex and the new developer that you spoke of as well.
Okay, so explain this to me, because I've not heard this one before. So you're able to use hot geothermal water for cooling. How does that work?
Yeah, it's not new technology. It's not always the most efficient, so that we would have to study it a little bit more. But essentially, would work like a carrier air conditioner on top of your roof. So we would run it in reverse and provide cooling. The more efficient use of geothermal is really for district heating. And so the primary study right now is for providing heating for these large facilities or data centers or manufacturing plants in the winter. But we are also studying the potential to provide cooling if that's something of interest in the summer.
And now, and for those that may not be aware of the technology, you're not actually pumping super hot water around these districts. Explain how the technology works.
Sure. So in Reno, at our district heating utility there, we pump hot water out of the ground in 3 locations in the center of a residential district. That geothermal brine actually goes through a heat exchanger, and it heats up municipal water. The geothermal brine is then re-injected back into the ground, pretty close to where it came out of the ground. So you're right. The geothermal brine is coming out of the ground. We're pulling the heat out of it, and then the brine is going back into the ground in almost the same location. The municipal water that gets heated up is then piped around underground in the utility corridor, similar to where your gas and electric and telephone pipelines are. And so it's really just clean municipal water that we're pumping around for our customers to use to get the heat from.
And do you need to put in additional piping to make this work? Or are you able to use existing facilities to be able to do that?
No, it's part of the big expense in the initial development is putting the pipe in the ground. So our pipe sits anywhere from 2 feet to 5 feet underground, Again, we try and do it in the street in existing utilidors where there's already gas and electric and other utility services. But putting that pipe in the ground is perhaps, after drilling, the largest expense associated with district heating.
All right, let's take another break, and we'll be right back with Nick Goodman, the CEO of Cyrq Energy, right after this timeout.
Dimitri Prine here for Design Outdoor. Come visit Design Outdoor's store and backyard to see our wide selection of fire pits, barbecues, and pizza ovens, natural stone water features and fountains, and frost-proof pottery. Our store and backyard are located at 11600 South Virginia, just north of DeMonte Ranch Parkway. Visit designoutdoor.com or call us at 851-9499.
One of the most psychologically damaging things parents can do to children in divorce
is disparage one another, which is why I can't believe I even have to make this commercial. Half of your kids' genetics come from this person you're spewing hate about. Your children have the right to love you both, but more than that, they deserve to love themselves.
Marilyn York might be a men's rights divorce attorney, but this is for every selfish parent. Shut up.
Hi, I'm Dave Newman. Remember me? I used to be the house detective, and now I'm a realtor, full-time at RE/MAX Realty Affiliates. A lot of people ask me, how's the market? You know what? It's fantastic. If you're even kicking around the idea of buying or selling, give me a call. Let's talk about it. Call me at RE/MAX Realty Affiliates and just ask for the guy who used to be the house detective, Dave Newman.
Everyone is talking about opioids, but they're not the only drugs that can be harmful if taken in large quantities or not as prescribed. You also need to be aware of side effects from anxiety drugs, muscle relaxants, sleep aids, and stimulants. Mixing prescription drugs with other drugs or alcohol can be dangerous. If you take Ambien with a glass of wine, it may be enough to stop you from breathing. Prescribed drugs can be just as dangerous as illegal drugs. Take medications only as directed.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we continue our conversation with Nick Goodman. He is the CEO of Cyrq Energy. And I wanted to ask you about this because, you know, you've just gotten this large grant from the Department of Energy, which of course comes through this conservative Republican administration. Democrats have been very strong on renewable energy, but it doesn't seem that there's been any let-up in promoting renewable energy despite the desire to maintain older technologies like coal and oil and gas. But it seems like both parties, should I say, are still promoting renewable energy. Am I correct on that?
Yes, and certainly with geothermal, we've seen continued support and continued funding for the Department of Energy, for example, in support of programs that like where we're receiving this grant from both Republicans and Democrats. So we're very pleased with that. I think there's a recognition that geothermal is different from wind and solar. It's a little bit less controversial in that regard. Of course, we do rely on the front end of all geothermal development on drilling. The drilling we do is very similar to oil and gas. We use the same types of companies and service companies and rigs and the likes. And so there's a fair amount of overlap there. And I think both parties have recognized that geothermal development is a little bit different than solar and wind in that regard.
Let's just go back to Reno for a minute here. You're looking at potentially working with the city of Reno on the new Moana pool and a fitness center there. That sounds like that would be a great cost-saving deal once that's put together, if that works out.
Absolutely. You know, the cost to heat pools in the wintertime is rather extreme, and especially if the heat is allowed to escape and the pools aren't covered. So historically, there was a geothermal well right there at the park. It's no longer in service, but we know there's a geothermal resource there. We believe that would be a great deployment of the technology to drill a new well there and provide heating for the pool year-round and also for the fitness center.
Realistically, how many homes could you heat if you had the ability to develop that in South Reno?
Wow, it's a great question. Really, the limiting factor is not the geothermal resource. I think the limiting factor would be all the existing development above ground and being able to drill wells in locations that wouldn't be of concern to residents and putting pipe in the ground and the likes. That all said, our current focus is to try and grow the business with some larger customers. I mentioned earlier casinos, the convention center, and the likes. Once we have a major tenant, if you will, or a major customer, it's easier to branch out into residential locations from there. So the short answer to your question is, I think we feel there's potential over the next 20 years to grow district heating to 15, 20, maybe even 25% of the homes in Reno if the market and the customers are wanting that.
Boy, that is a huge amount there. That definitely is. Listen, great having you on the program. So thank you again for doing this under the circumstances where you're stuck in your car because of a forest fire here in Utah. You're definitely a first for this. But enjoy the conversation. Please come back again soon.
Will do. Thanks so much for having me.
And we'll be right back.
A bird's eye captures its surroundings at different heights. At Brian Culpa Photography, we can make your imagination soar over buildings, parks, cityscapes, and beyond. Brian's images tell the story and get the job done. If you need a new perspective to tell your story, contact Brian today. Brian Culpa Photography. Experience the bird's eye view at brianculpaphotography.com.
Hi, my name's Marilyn Miner, and I'm sure you'd agree that Nevada's a very special place to live. I was born here, and my husband and I have raised our family here. I feel it's a privilege to live and work in the Truckee Meadows. I especially enjoy helping my clients reach their real estate goals. Sometimes the smallest details provide the greatest satisfaction. I'd be complimented to talk to you about your next move.
Call Marilyn Miner at Dixon Realty, 742-1280, or log on to marilynminer.com.
Safety. We all think about it. You think about it when he buckles in, when you check your mirrors and put away your phone. RTC thinks about safety too. In fact, we create it. Center turn lanes mean fewer blind spots. Bike lanes keep cyclists and you safe. Roundabouts reduce injury collisions, and all these crosswalks are designed to keep families like yours safe. Safety is your priority, and it's ours too. Every day, in everything we do.
Pro Group Management specializes in providing industries with the necessary components to satisfy and exceed workers' comp requirements. Every business has unique needs and specific regulations. Pro Group Management stays ahead of the curve, providing up-to-date services to keep your industry in top form. Discover how we simplify your tasks, improve efficiency, and reduce expense to keep you moving in a positive direction. Pro Group Management, workers' comp that works for you.
You can now watch Nevada Newsmakers on YouTube. Just go to YouTube and search for Nevada Newsmakers and become a subscriber. We'll see you on the next broadcast. Thanks for watching and listening.